Winter weather tearing across the state, causing multiple weather alerts. Matsu officials saying to stay put to prevent problems.
Sure is treacherous and causing quite a bit of problems.
Residents advised to shelter in place as sustained hurricane-force wind causes widespread power outages, closes schools, and damages buildings. Whiteout conditions making the Glen Highway nearly impassable. In the Matsu, the Red Cross sets up emergency shelters for residents needing assistance. Operation Winter Storm, extreme weather conditions in the interior result in having the National Guard activated to assist in weather-related evacuations in Fairbanks.
This has certainly been a rare year in terms of the amount of snow that we've gotten without any melting.
In Juneau, an avalanche causes mass power outages, and snowblock roads are making for dangerous driving conditions.
You're watching Alaska's news source.
It has certainly been a rough couple of days across Alaska, especially in the Matsu. A disaster declaration was announced today because of the brutal weather conditions. We have team coverage tonight all across the state as we bring you the latest on this. First, let's go to Chief Meteorologist Melissa Fry with an overview of the extreme weather and the warnings in effect tonight. Melissa?
Yeah, Mike, the main concern with this event has not only been the strength of the winds that we've been seeing, but the duration of how long these winds have been going. We've been seeing 3 days of extreme wind in the valley specifically, and now that high wind warning extended all the way through 6 p.m. on Wednesday. So Tuesday and Wednesday still to go before we are completely out of the woods. The good news is, though, we are starting to see the winds at least relaxing a little bit. So we're not going to see, again, the winds staying at that high level that they have been. But look at these wind gusts we've already seen today. 70 miles per hour again in Wasilla, 41 in Anchorage, 59 in Talkeetna. Also seeing those high winds widespread in Seward and across Prince William Sound into the Copper River Basin. But it is no doubt the valley that is seeing the most extreme wind and also some of the most extreme wind chill. Right now, the current wind chill in Wasilla, 20 below, as many folks are still without power. Now, as we look ahead to the next 48 hours, again, you want to focus on the white and light pink areas. Those are the areas that are seeing winds in excess of 75 miles per hour. Now, while that will continue, again, it's going to become fewer and far between. We'll get some breaks, and we will see, again, most of the wind tapering down to between 30 and 45 miles per hour tomorrow. So there will be some subtle relief coming here tomorrow. And then that will continue to taper off as we head all the way into Wednesday. Now, the high winds blasting the valley the last 3 days continue to cause problems, significant power outage, thousands still without power even tonight. Joe Bartosik spent the day in Wasilla talking to people who've been forced to endure these strong winds.
I'm meteorologist Joe Bartosik in Wasilla, where when you drive into town, you can clearly see there's been a lot of wind damage. Everything from wind-whipped flags to large metal objects like the sign that have been just blown over by 80 to 90 mile an hour winds throughout the region today. We went over to the Fred Meyers here in town and we talked to some residents and their experiences about being in the bitter cold with these strong winds and without power.
Day 3 of high winds and conditions haven't really improved where people can really begin to clean up, so damage is noticeable and pretty much everywhere. From buildings with the facades peeled away, signs blown out, blown down, or blown away completely. Pulling into Fred Meyers today, crews out laying sandbags to secure cart returns. People here, happy to find a warm place that was open, told us of their experience this weekend.
Right next to my deck, I had a 40-foot tree. We heard a loud crack last night. And that came crashing down, luckily not toward the house, but toward our septic field, and we lucked out it didn't hit the vent pipes or anything. So it's pretty wild.
Was making that rattle and shake, and of course things were beating against the house in the wind that usually don't beat against the house. It was a little bit scary for everybody.
The burst of wind actually sounds like a freight train at night, so it's a little creepy, but we're making it.
Any trees down, power lines down, anything?
Yeah, outside of Palmer, there's a bunch of trees that are down, mainly, and a lot of snow drifts across the road and stuff. It's going to take a lot of time for the road crew to get the roads cleared out.
Because of the bitter cold and that so many people are without power, the Red Cross is here to lend a helping hand.
Well, we wanted to open up the shelter here at the Menard Center so that people who are suffering from the power outage have some place to come where they can get warm. They can recharge their computers, they have snacks, they have coffee, and it's just a good place to have a timeout.
And they'll be here as long as necessary, and that's a good thing because high wind warnings have been extended through Wednesday. In Wasilla, I'm meteorologist Joe Bartosik, Alaska's news source.
And for those that need that assistance right now, the Red Cross of Alaska has a warming shelter currently set up at the Palmer Junior Middle School for residents, again, who just need to get warm, need to get some power. And again, the good news is that the winds are already starting to slow down, but we're not out of the woods just yet. We still have that potential for wind gusts of hurricane strength. Lauren Maxwell has more on why that could be a bigger problem for people without power.
Well, the situation here could turn dire very quickly as temperatures drop and these high winds continue. There's a very real concern for people without heat.
On Monday morning, nearly 16,000 Matanuska Electric Association customers were still without power, some of them since Saturday. MEA says it may take until the end of the week before all of them are back online.
Our priorities as far as responding to outages is we are responding to the larger and largest ones first, and then trying to work our way down to the 100 or so person outages.
People have been instructed to ride out the storm by sheltering in place. But with temperatures expected to drop and wind chills that could dip to near 35 below, the borough manager says some people would be safer to seek shelter sooner rather than later.
With the wind chill and with just the continued winds over the next several days, we would definitely encourage folks not to stay too long in their homes if they're without power and it's getting to that point where they can't maintain an adequate temperature.
Now, one other thing to know, there is no school in the Mat-Su borough on Tuesday. The superintendent says they're worried about getting students to school safely. He says they will reevaluate the situation at noon on Tuesday to decide whether those closures should continue. For Alaska's news source, I'm Lauren Maxwell.
Such a tough situation to endure winds of that strength for that long. And from south central to southeast, the wind, snow, and cold air causing dangerous conditions there, leading to avalanches, power outages, and dangerous seas. Sean McGuire joins us live with the current weather impacts across southeast. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Melissa. There's been a lot of snow this winter in Juneau, but not a lot of thawing. That's what the National Weather Service was telling me today. That comes after an avalanche crossed over the Thane Road yesterday, and that knocked out power and put snow and debris onto the roads. Now, this is footage from Sunday morning's avalanche, and as I was mentioning, it knocked out power for those residents out there in Thane. The power's been restored, but there continues to be a high risk of avalanches and a high wind warning in place for Juneau, Skagway, and Haines. Some avalanches have been observed coming off Mount Juneau. Officials want hikers to stay off popular trails near the impacted areas. And snow is dumped all over the city all December, but temperatures have stayed low and plowing has been delayed. Officials are recommending everyone take caution if they need to drive.
Really the message is to just be safe. Drive slowly, make sure your lights are on, make sure your car is clear of snow when you're driving it, make sure your lights are clear of snow.
Now, I'm told that a fishing boat by the name of the Angela K sank on New Year's Day. It broke free from its moorings on Ork Bay, and state officials and city officials are currently monitoring it just to make sure it doesn't cause any environmental damage. And we have some good news from Heidelberg. You might remember last week that the water system was knocked out by freezing weather, but I'm told it's back online now since 2 days ago, but they're going to have to repressurize the system to make sure all water can get to all residents. Mike?
All right, thank you, Sean. We'll have more on the weather situation later in the newscast. Coming up next, we are telling Alaska's story. This week, we introduce you to two Alaskan artists with very different styles, but they've worked together to create a new look that's being shown off here in Alaska.
You're watching Alaska's news source.
Two Alaskan artists with very different styles collaborated, and the result is now part of a collection being featured at the North Face. Photojournalist Lexi Yelverton brings us this week's Telling Alaska's Story.
I initially had this idea to work with my friend Tazadi. She's a really dope artist out of Juneau, Alaska. We put together this idea to do vests that have a story behind each one.
We not only collab as a business-wise, but artistry-wise too. Just getting to collide our different modes of creating and then display that as one. definitely created a really good bond.
We're both up and coming though. How do we make this bigger?
Thank you, man.
North Face is one of my favorite brands, so, you know, just what if I reached out?
Especially being Alaska, it's a tight-knit community, and getting to share something that we're passionate together with, like, you can't miss the opportunity.
So I reached out to them and, you know, I was like, we have this idea to put together this project. You know, it'd be a dream of mine to work with the North Face. You know, it's one of my favorite brands growing up, being from Alaska. And, you know, I just went over the spiel of the different designs we wanted to do. And she was really receptive, and she said, you know, that's above me. I'm gonna talk to who I need to, and I'll get back to you. Maybe like a week later, maybe less than that, I got a text and a call, and she was like, yeah, you can definitely be in the store, and this collab is gonna happen.
It was a special moment. I think most brands don't have like that intimate aspect of collaborating. You know, us getting to paint together, talk together, and like be there for when it's displayed for the first time. That was really special. It just shows like what you can do in Alaska, you know, the connections you can make that are a lifetime.
For them, you know, someone I really respect as a brand, for them to be receptive to my creative direction and my ideas, you know, it means the world. That's phenomenal to me.
And the best are being featured at the North Face store on 5th Avenue.
And coming up after the break, I'll have a look at that 7-day forecast, including, again, how much longer we're going to see these high winds. But first, take a look at your daylight amounts for tomorrow, January 4th. We're up to 5 hours, 47 minutes, sun setting at 3:58 as we gain another 2 minutes and 38 seconds.
You're watching Alaska's Weather Source.
It's not just Alaska that is seeing extreme winter weather this week. More than 20 million people under winter storm alerts, and snow, rain, and cold air continue to move across the eastern sides of the U.S. Schools are closed, thousands of homes without power, and the weather has added more pressure to airlines that were already stressed by COVID. NBC's Dan Schiefman brings us the details.
Snow is socking it to the east and southeast.
It's a little late. Wasn't here for Christmas.
Weather snarled traffic at many of the nation's airports. One air traveler, President Biden, was greeted by heavy snow when Air Force One arrived at Joint Base Andrews. At the White House, the lawn covered in a thick blanket of white. Up to 10 inches forecast for the Washington, D.C. area. Multiple school systems called off classes.
Stay home, stay off the roads, allow our crews to work.
And it's a lot of work. Throughout the mid-Atlantic, keeping roads clear and windshields free of snow is a challenge.
I woke up, the car was covered in snow, so I had to clean that off.
The governor of New Jersey declared a snow emergency, while near Philadelphia, snowflakes were falling the day after some unseasonably warm temperatures.
Basically wearing shorts yesterday and then go to, here we go, snowing, right?
Snow fell in North Carolina, while snowfall in Alabama was an opportunity for one snowboarder to have a little fun.
It's snowing.
Not even the Florida Panhandle was spared the winter weather. 2022, off to a snow-covered start. Dan Scheneman, NBC News.
And here locally, again, I want to show you those winds that we've been seeing up into the valley specifically. This is at one location right along the Glen Highway at the Parks Interchange, showing you those peak wind gusts that we've seen here over the past 72 hours. The colors you see here in blue, those are the sustained winds. The orange are the wind gusts. And you can see it really started to ramp up the afternoon of New Year's Day. Once we got into that evening, wind gusts were up over not only 50 miles per hour, but pushing above 75 miles per hour. And we didn't just see an occasional gust at that level. You can see it pretty much stayed at that level, even ramping up further once we got into this late in the second into early this morning as well, still seeing those high winds. So that has been the problem in the valley. Is not that we've had extreme wind, which of course we definitely have, but it's been the duration at which we have seen those extreme winds, which the good news is, though, it is starting to slowly taper off. If you're wondering how this compares to other historic windstorms that we've seen. You may remember March of 2003, back 19 years ago, we did have record winds out at Ted Stevens of 109 miles per hour. That caused the tower to be forced to be evacuated and the airport to temporarily shut down. But that event also brought in those extreme winds to the valley, and is a really similar weather scenario, weather pattern that we saw that brought in those high winds then as well. But this time, again, Anchorage has seen some strong winds, but nothing damaging. That has pretty much all been up into the valley. With the highest wind right there on the Glen Highway of 91 miles per hour, but widespread, we've been seeing those wind gusts between 60 and 80 miles per hour in the valley. Tony and Palmer sent us this picture. Look at the car. Can you see it there? Buried in the snowdrift with that snow piling high in the area. David Gervin sharing this video with us out in Big Lake. You can see the blowing snow. That's been the scene in the valley all weekend, but his security camera, which looks like it was just hanging on by a thin thread there, was attached to a tree. You'll see what happens when that tree could no longer stand up to that wind. The tree and the camera with it came crashing down. Again, a similar scenario that we've been seeing all over the place in the valley. Now, the reason why we're seeing the extreme wind is a really large area of high pressure that's in the northwest corner of the state, butting up to a low pressure area that's pushing out of the Gulf and down into southeast. Those get close together and you get the clockwise winds around the high pressure, the counterclockwise winds around the low pressure, and then that squeezes the air. It funnels it in between. Again, with the most extreme effects there into the valley. That is going to still be the case tomorrow, but that high pressure is going to push a little bit further to the north, and the low pressure is going to push a little bit further to the south. It's going to allow things to relax a little bit, but we do still have that high wind warning in effect until 6 p.m. on Wednesday. The difference tomorrow and Wednesday is that the winds are not going to stay elevated consistently. We'll see occasional peak wind gusts that high, but for the most part, we'll gradually start to see those winds relaxing a bit here over the next couple of days, which I know you desperately need there in the valley. We've also been seeing strong winds and dangerous wind chill across the interior all the way to the slope, and then also seeing high winds tonight in Juneau, along with a wind chill advisory there as well. Look at some of these current wind chill values. 40 below in Dead Horse, 52 in Ukiavik, seeing strong winds and cold temperatures all the way down the west coast into the interior as well. Even here in Anchorage, the current wind chill is 7 below. Now in southeast, the strongest winds will taper off overnight tonight. Still breezy from Yakutat down into Haines, up into Skagway as well. High temperatures tomorrow for most of you, still only into the single digits. We will see some snow tomorrow in Kodiak, but everyone else in South Central, clear, just cold. Sub-zero temperatures tonight in Kenai and in Soldotna. Temperatures across Prince William Sound will be in the single digits. Quite cold in the Copper River Basin. 38 below tonight near Golcana. For those of you in the valley, again, getting even colder. Again, a dangerous situation if you are without power. It's really important that you go to one of those warming shelters if you're not able to keep your house warm. 25-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Anchorage. We drop to 3 below tonight with a high of 5 tomorrow. This clear and cold weather is going to stick with us all week long, Mike. I sure hope that the power gets back on soon, but we really appreciate the work that those linemen have been doing.
Oh, yes, indeed. All right. Thanks, Melissa. Still ahead this evening, a new year with new COVID problems. The rapid rise in coronavirus cases across the country is forcing public leaders and businesses to make some tough decisions. We'll have details coming up.
You're watching Alaska's news source.
Well, the new year brings new hope and new challenges in the battle against the COVID-19 pandemic. There's growing concern from some experts that while the Omicron variant may be milder for adults, it could pose a greater risk for children.
The one group that may be a problem for is very young children, toddlers, who have trouble with upper airway infections. And we are seeing rising hospitalizations among that pediatric segment.
Now today, the FDA unveiling major changes, authorizing booster shots for kids ages 12 to 15 and shortening the window between the initial doses of a vaccine and the booster shot for everyone from 6 months to 5. And the FDA is authorizing a third dose of vaccine for some immunocompromised children between the ages of 5 and 11. For many of the nation's kids, it was the first day back to school after the holiday break, but amidst rising pediatric COVID hospitalizations, some school districts have elected to go back to remote learning, while others are choosing to remain in the classrooms.
A lot of teachers, a lot of staff are going to come down with COVID, and whether schools are going to be able to remain open with a limited staff, with reduced staffing, we'll have to see.
Now, a vast majority of the country seen in dark red here is struggling with COVID surges, in some places 50% or more. The nation broke records for at least 4 times this week in the 7-day average for new daily COVID-19 cases, reporting an all-time high of more than 394,000 new daily infections Saturday, according to the latest data from Johns Hopkins University. Starbucks announced today that it will now be requiring its employees to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. This comes as the company prepares to comply with the Biden administration's vaccine or test COVID requirements for private businesses, which is being challenged in the U.S. Supreme Court. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration is mandating that companies with at least 100 employees enforce weekly COVID testing or masking for those who are unvaccinated. Starbucks employees have until January 10th to disclose their vaccination status and until February 9th to become fully vaccinated. If they are not, they will have to present a negative COVID-19 test no more than 7 days before their next shift and once a week going forward. Still ahead, Melissa will join us again after the break for a final look at the forecast this half hour for this really bad winter weather.
You're watching Alaska's news source.
Tough few days here in South Central and in many other parts of the state. Let's get one last check from Melissa Fry.
Yeah, we're going to continue to see again the potential for those extreme wind gusts in the valley with Wasilla Palmer all the way through 6 p.m. on Wednesday. So the high wind warning still in effect, still the potential for damaging hurricane force wind gusts. The difference going forward, though, is the winds will not stay at that level as they have been the last 2 days. They will be fewer and far between that we see those strong wind gusts. So hopefully enough relief for those linemen to get out to do some power restoration and also for folks just to get some relief from, again, the extreme conditions that you've been enduring out there since the first of the year. Here in Anchorage, temperatures below 0 overnight, as will be most of South Central into Southeast. Also, high temperatures only into the single digits tomorrow, clear and cold into the weekend, Mike.
All right, Melissa, thank you. And we have more news coming up on Channel 2 in just a moment.